Today we've got Eric Siu with us. Eric is the CEO of Single Grain. It's a performance marketing agency working with companies like Amazon, Uber, and Salesforce. Single Grain also has Carrot, which is a LinkedIn ABM ads product, along with ClickFlow, an SEO product. Eric is also the co-host of the Marketing School podcast with Neil Patel, which has published over 2,000 episodes and has over 140 million downloads. Eric, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Saharsh. This should be fun.
So Eric's been ahead of the curve on a lot of stuff. We want to take this opportunity to really go deep into some of Eric's unique perspectives in terms of what he's seen, over the last decade or more in this space, in the marketing space, and then really also figure out how your perspective recently has evolved with everything that's going on with AI, personal branding, influencer marketing, et cetera, et cetera. So maybe first you can, Eric, also just introduce yourself and then tell us a little bit about what is the biggest shift in the last 6 months that you've seen.
Yeah, I think your intro was perfect. I mean, I just like nerding out on marketing. I think business is the best game you can play in the world. And probably the biggest shift last 6 months or so. I mean, because my background's in SEO, it's just traditional SEO is dead. And I'm sure we'll talk about that. Traditional SEO is completely just screwed, right? Or however you want to put it. That's forcing everyone. And we talk about this on the Marketing School podcast, where SEO is no longer just search engine optimization. It's search everywhere optimization. And that means that like the game that you're playing with YouTube, that YouTube's like still the second largest search engine in the world. Well, if you're selling stuff, you have to play the Amazon game. If you're doing apps, you have to do App Store optimization or optimize for the LLM. So that whole AI SEO thing is like another thing people are trying to talk about right now, which I think is a bunch of baloney at the moment. I'm not saying it won't become a thing, but all that to say is that I think SEO is fundamentally shifted, and the game of content in general is changing. You're in SF. You look at how the Cluely guys are playing the game right now. You look at, and they're very young people. I think they're probably around your age. Like, what are you, mid-20s, early 20s?
I'm mid-20s.
Okay, yeah. So I mean,
I think they're early 20s, yeah.
They're early 20s, right? And so they've got a little bit of a spunk to them. And then the WAP guys kind of they're mid-20s, right? And so you're seeing the game evolve, and then I would say that it's very different than how I grew up with marketing.
Let's double click on that. So I mean, like, what do you think it's changing? Is there a specific reason it's changing now? AI is happening separately. I don't even think this has anything to do with AI. What has actually changed that's causing this shift?
Yeah. Well, I mean, AI definitely shifted SEO quite a bit, right? So the AI overviews and which takes like 40% of the traffic.
Yeah.
And then I think you saw that Cloudflare CEO just report that back in the day, every 2 crawls would yield 1 visitor. And now it's like every, I don't know, 600 or something like that, or 60, even 60 to 1 is crazy. But
yeah.
And then the LLMs are getting crazier and crazier. So I do think AI is playing a big role into this, because the way you used to do SEO was like, it was based on links and content. Now it's based on content and brand, right? So like if you're showing up a lot, and thankfully Neil and we've been playing the marketing game for a while. The reason why, if you go to every LLM and you ask what the best marketing podcast is, and we show up usually number 1 or number 2, is because we have a lot of citations, right? So the game has changed in that respect. But also the game of organic 15 years ago, the only game in town was Google search. And now the organic game is very much LinkedIn, which you're starting to crack, or X or YouTube. You kind of pick your poison, or like shorts. So
what if somebody is not evolving? I mean, I talked to a lot of other agency owners. We talked to other, marketing leaders who've been in space for a while, and it seems almost some of them are trying to run the playbook from a few years ago. I mean, is it kind of like adapt or die at this point, or like how should those people be thinking about marketing
I think it's
now?
always been adapt or die. I think AI just speeds that up, and I'm glad it's adapt or die, because it's a competitive world, right? And I think if you're like, it's the same thing with trying to get your team to eat up this AI fluency thing, right? Like which we're running through our organization right now. The vast majority of people are very excited about it, and they know it's a challenge, and they know that if they don't pick it up, they're going to be left behind. But you do have a very small cohort of people who are unwilling and are resisting this change. And unfortunately, those people, no matter where they decide to go next, this AI thing's going to chase them, right? And so I don't want to spend too much time talking about AI, but I just do think a lot of the speed is being driven by AI adoption overall, and the rate of change that's happening. Like, to make this actionable for someone, if you are running a playbook from a couple years ago, well, let's just think about first principles. What still works today? Well, in marketing, what matters? Well, you need to find the people. You need to find where your customers are hanging out. That's number 1. Or if you haven't even defined that, you need to define what your ideal client profile is. And then after that, how do you persuade people? Well, again, let's use the Cluely guys, for example. They're really good at these hooks, right? They're like, oh, let's cheat on everything. That's a headline for everything. we're gonna hire 50 interns, right? That's another big one. Or we're gonna throw a party right after YC startup school, and we're gonna throw a party because everyone else is a nerd, right? So they have an edge to them, right? And so that's kind of what if you want to stand out, you want to get headlines, you look at the people on X all the time. It's always the people that are saying stuff that's kind of outlandish.
Got it. I mean, so one thing you mentioned recently on marketing school, right, was that every modern founder will be half influencer, half operator, and that companies are turning into these like half media companies. Do you think the only way to win now is to have that? Is it like having a personal brand, or is it having a specific edge about the company?
I think you need to have distribution no matter what. It doesn't necessarily have to be the founder. I think that the company in some way, shape, or form needs to have a media arm to it, meaning that they could go hire some influencer. There's a lot of people that hire in-house influencers now and pay them, 150, 200, 250, 300 and plus bonuses, right? Or you can do what I think Cluely did a smart thing, and I think WAP does the same thing too, where they just hire an army of these interns and maybe they paid them $50 an hour, and then for each video that gets over 1 million views, they get bonused like $1,000 or so, right? And so I think you can do that, or you can play the game yourself. I do think it's kind of exhausting having to create content like how I've been doing it for a while, but it works for me because I enjoy teaching. Like if you're to look at, I would want my gravestone to say at the very end, this guy was a learner and a teacher. Like that's it.
Yeah.
So I enjoy it and it works for me, but I think it doesn't work for a lot of people, and that's okay. You can always hire the people for it and just structure it where you keep these influencers for a long time.
So everyone should do it or has to do it. And if you are the type of person that enjoys doing it, keep doing it. But if you don't want to do it or you can't do it, that doesn't mean your company cannot do it,
Yeah, and it's
essentially.
everything's it's a reach game. Like I look at distribution and data as the two moats moving forward, and so you're gonna have to have some form of distribution. You've always needed distribution. Even in the '80s, you needed distribution. Maybe it was through like newspapers and things like that. And
Yeah.
now it's changed. And then, but by the way, so Harsh, in the next 2 to 3 years, the game is gonna change again. Short form's not gonna work as well anymore. Maybe there's other stuff that's not gonna work anymore. But I think that the key thing to understand is that when we play the game of business, marketing is a subset of business. The game is constantly evolving, and we're just playing a game, and the winners are just ones that play it better.
I like that framing. It is a game. And I think the fun part about the game is that the game changes every couple of years, like almost like dramatically in very different ways. So some of our audience and some of the people that we work with
So
are
Harsh,
agencies.
can I bring it back to you for a second? Let,
Yeah, that's it.
okay, so let's take your LinkedIn for example. Like I looked at your LinkedIn, like you're starting to get great reach, right? And it's not like you have the most followers in the world or anything like that. It's because the content is good and you're being seen in as a good employee to LinkedIn. And let me explain what I mean by that. So one of my friends, he gets millions and millions and millions of views per month on YouTube, long form. Those are really valuable views. And he's like, Eric, the way I look at YouTube is that you have to be a good employee. I'm like, what do you mean by that? He's like, a good employee means you show up to work every day on time. You do what you're supposed to do. You don't try to change the job to be done every single day. You can't 1 second talk about LinkedIn, next day you talk about, I don't know, flowers, and then you talk about golf the next day, right? Then you're just
Yeah.
an inconsistent employee. After a
Yeah.
period of time, you're seen as a consistent employee, then you will be awarded with the reach. But you decide to stop posting, okay, you're an inconsistent employee now. You decided you deserve to get punished. Now, the way I look at your LinkedIn now, Saharsh, is that you're being awarded by the algorithms, right? Whereas like for me back in the day, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago on LinkedIn, whatever I posted, tens of thousands of views, easy money, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I was not a good employee to LinkedIn, and so one of the key reasons I want to bring this up is because you can't play all these games at once. You usually can only master one first, and then you can start to try to branch out. But you're just never going to play all of them well. You just try to be world class at one, and then
Yeah.
branch out.
I think I generally agree with that. I think we've seen that like some of the influencers, for example, like the Cluey guys, right? Uh, they'll have a pretty big following and reach on Twitter, and they still have a decent following, I think, on LinkedIn, but I don't see them as much on LinkedIn. But I think because of that popularity on this other platform, it actually pulls up their awareness on other platforms too,
Yep, for sure.
which seems to help. Awesome. Yeah, I think the employee framing is definitely an interesting one. It's the first time I've heard that, but maybe I should. I mean, we're actually across from the LinkedIn building right now. It's like I can see it from my window.
Yep.
So maybe I'll head over and tell them I'm an employee.
I want to be a good employee.
Awesome. This is one thing I want to talk about specifically, which is the agency model, right? The agency model, I think from what we've seen personally, as well as some of our partners and stuff, there's some concern. Some people are excited, right? Because now there's more automation. you can get more efficient. But at the same time, like the operators I'm talking to, right, in the B2B SaaS companies, some of them are questioning, oh, do we actually need an agency? If these tools have become so much better at delivering the outcomes, do I need an agency to and actually keep them on retainer to do SEO or content or this? What's your take on that?
Yeah. Two thoughts here. I mean, the first one is fundamentally, we're always going to need great people because great people are rare to find. Great people are rare to find because it's hard to be a great person. And so I think no matter what, we're always going to need help, right? And whether it's through a machine or something else. And the way I look at agencies now is software has kind of become like an agency because you look at all these SaaS products, they have strong customer success teams, right? And so the kind of is like there's client services right there, right? You have a managed services option too, where a lot of enterprises, when they come over to Carrot, they're like, can you just do it for us? And then we have to charge like an agency for that. But I also think that agencies are becoming software too. And what I mean by that is Single Grain was agency first, but then we have a tech-enabled services vision for the future where we see, like, for example, Carrot or ClickFlow, we want really smart people that are managing these products. And then we want them to have thousands of agentic workflows helping them or hundreds or thousands of agents helping them. And we're seeing that right now, which I'm happy to talk about. But I keep saying to my team, almost every week when I make a video for them on Fridays, I'm like, hey guys, small teams, big businesses, this is where we're going. Elite, elite was what we're aiming for. And like, if there's anything I'm going to micromanage as the founder, is I am absolutely 1,000% going to micromanage our level of the talent bar and the level of people that we bring in, because that is the one thing that I can control the most and the most important thing, arguably.
You've kept Single Grain relevant, for a while now, and I've looked into the story about how you bought it for $2 and that whole thing. Most agencies, a lot of agencies plateau after a few years. Two questions for you. One, how have you kept Single Grain relevant for so long? And now you just also alluded to this tech-enabled services arm. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that? And then is this the future for all agencies? Again, adapt or die?
Yeah, I think adapt or die for sure, for everything, not even just agencies. I mean, my vision of the future is like with Carrot, we want to create this B2B operating system where we come up with a bunch of suggestions and it's just like, dude, can you just do it for us in one click? Which I'm sure that's what you're doing too.
I know.
Because that's where the future marketing is going. Like nobody wants to run all this stuff and click on these campaigns and do this and do that.
Yeah.
That's where I see it going. Is that the essence of your question, or like I feel like I'm missing the second part?
Well, part one was like even before AI stuff, like how have you kept Single Grain relevant?
Yeah.
And then what are we doing next? Is that a continuation of what you've done over the last many years, or is it something different now?
Yeah, I would say the biggest thing to answer the first part of the question is, and I actually workshopped this morning with ChatGPT o3. I literally took a document that I started 11 years ago, and it shows there's this exercise called feedback analysis from a Peter Drucker book called Managing Oneself. It's a really short book, right? And the whole concept is you just talk about the big bets you made, and like red or green, red means it doesn't work out, green means it works out. It worked out. It told me that all the big bets I made had to do, like most of the time, with people. 70% of the time when something works out is because we hired someone amazing, right? And there's like a bunch of other patterns that it spotted with me, which are like exactly spot on. My point of saying this is that we've been relevant, not due to me. I'm probably the engine that keeps going. If there's anything that I bring to the table, it's probably resilience. But I think creating the content has helped me leverage the ability to hire amazing people who sometimes I would have no business being able to hire. And so we have a very strong CTO. We have some of the new people that we brought on recently. My God, their experience, like they come from PE-backed platform agencies or SaaS companies, for example, right? And so the cliche is, oh, the people are everything. But yeah, it is the people are everything. And so I think I'll tell you the mistake I made before. So one, hire people who have been there, done that. Because you're in your mid-20s right now. The mistake I made in my mid-20s, and I'm not saying you would do this, but I tend to have a heart where I traded on potential. I didn't trade on proof, right? And so I reversed it now. So where in the past, maybe 80% of the hires would be, I'd be trading on potential because I think I have a good eye for talent, right? Now, maybe I'm picking 80, 90% of the time, I'm picking people who have been there, done that. And then they are the ones who carry the load forward. That's the first part of your question or answer.
But wouldn't you say there, like, I mean, I totally get what you're saying. Part of it is when you are a less well-known brand, right, and no one knows about you, don't you almost have to over-index on potential and slope as opposed to y-intercept? Is maybe you don't have the brand to actually attract those top people, right? You can't actually afford to pay top dollar to get the people who have already proven themselves.
Absolutely. So harsh. So like I like to say this with my Indian friends. I mean, it's our culture of growing up, right? And I'm not like I
Yeah.
know specifically with your culture and my culture, it's a lot of I was talking about this with Neil on the podcast last week. We're just getting kicked in the nuts the whole time. The whole time, like even today, we're getting kicked in the nuts every day, right? It's
Yeah.
just the degree that you're willing to take that pain, and like once you beat that, like you're absolutely right. Like yeah, I absolutely no brand equity in the beginning, couldn't afford anything, but somehow you're because you are the founder, you're the most, you can craft a magical vision and you can convince people along for the ride. You just keep doing that and then you will the thing forward. And I mean, these guys over here like Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger, like they just you just gotta outlast, right? And
Yeah.
like all these cliches that I thought were a bunch of bullshit in my mid 20s, and I read all the business books, right? But then it's like, oh damn, they're all true when in my late 30s now. So
That's I need to read some of the more of those books actually. But I agree with that. What is it about you? And so we talked a bit about the agency or business, right? And you talked a bit about your own resilience. What is it about, you as the founder, maybe at this stage in the company, you're maybe more hands off on a few things, probably not everything, but is there something specific about, whether you're running an agency business or a software business or whatever it is, like how do you keep how do you just keep going for a long amount period of time without losing the motivation, without, hitting a roadblock and then deciding to give up or pivot too soon? Like any words there?
yeah. I'll tell you about 5 years ago or so. I mean, we almost lost everything. We did these acquisitions, and then I drank the Kool-Aid around holding company, holding company. Oh, hire a CEO and get out of their way. And that's exactly what I did. I got it out of their way, right? I've done that so many times already, where I've tried to just get out of the way, where I abdicated. I didn't even delegate. I abdicated, and that led to everything just crumbling, right? But I think because you've seen like you see so many people, all they do is you just keep going. If there's one thing I've learned from poker is that as long as you keep going and you don't go bust, you're going to be fine over a long period of time. I think most
You're still in
founders
the
just
game.
tap out. They tap out too quickly, right? That once the going gets, and that's why there aren't many, like it's hard to achieve an outsized level of success because it is so damn hard. I mean, you look at like love or hate Elon Musk, like the guy eats glass every single day and there's so many people that hate him, but that's what it takes to get there. I mean, you can even look at, and I'm sure, you can talk about the president too and all these things, right? But it's like the amount that they have to endure. Like I think whatever side you're on, like there has to be some respect for that. Like that's what it takes to succeed as a founder.
So, and this is almost kind of like the founder mode stuff, right? Founder mode, or like, Zuck 20 years in is still leading the company and, Apple's doing its own thing. It's kind of lost its dominance there. But that founder led, when the founder's still kind of involved very deeply, I think many, many years in, that seems to be a key factor.
Nobody can beat founder energy, and that's what I've learned doing. I tried stepping out 4 times, right? And that's not to say like I'm going to micromanage everything. It's to say I'm going
Yeah.
to be involved and I'm happy to have someone take my place, right?
Yeah.
But like a good example of this, and Neil and I joke about this all the time. Like with his agency, it's like, oh, he has no direct reports. He doesn't manage anyone because he's horrible at it. But he has good people with him, and he's constantly pushing the pace, right? And I think your job as the founder is to keep turning the temperature up, and you have the thermometer. You have control of the thermometer. The moment you start to let up is when everyone else starts to let up because they don't have the incentive to try as hard as you do. You have every incentive to. So that's what I would say ultimately. And look, I think do the cliche stuff, like the cliche things such as working out in the morning help absolutely 1,000%. Like I'll put it to you this way. A couple weeks ago, I lost my mom, right? I lost my mom, and it's like, there's a bunch of other things that need to be taken care of with, my mom's stuff or like the business and all that. We're making some key hires and everything. And every morning I would wake up. Of course, I would think about my mom. And first week I was like really sad, and I'm still sad. But like when I wake up, I'm like, fuck yeah, this is awesome. Like my life is great, right? But it's because of those little things that add up. Oh yeah, yeah, you gotta lift weights. Yeah, you gotta do that zone 2 thing. You
Yeah.
gotta do the zone 5. Oh yeah, you should probably eat healthy and all that. Like yeah, that
Yeah.
stuff compounds, and that's why I paid 3,400 for these bronze busts over here, because when I talk to you and I look at these guys in the back, all the things come back. Oh yeah, be patient over the long term, right? Don't be an idiot. Oh, don't go broke using ladies, liquor, and leverage, right? There's all these sayings that pop up to you.
Yeah.
So that's another thing I'll share with you. It's like sometimes things like this will anchor you.
That's good. I've found some of that in my own life as well recently over the last 2 years, since
How so?
starting the company. I think there was, I mean, so we did YC, right? YC was 2-3 months long, and you almost like, you kind of just neglect everything aside from just work at that time, right? And it's like I'm going to do this for 3 months, and then I'm going to go back to, taking care of myself. And that doesn't really come back unless you like create those systems or create some sort of routine. And I'm typically the type of person, I don't like routines because I feel like I used to think that that takes away my chance for creativity and
Yeah,
randomness
yeah, yeah.
that I need in order to like, have those more spontaneous experiences. But it's not just like when you're on full throttle, like 7 days a week almost, it's like you're gonna burn out. And I thought burnout was, kind of, I never experienced burnout actually before the company. And now there's times, and I think that the thing that sustains you is like having those habits or routines just to have some sense of like normalcy. And actually, the way I think about it now, which I've started doing since the company, is like assigning a metric, assigning a number to everything, right? Like I have this Whoop now,
Hmm.
which I got recently, and there's numbers I can track, my heart rate, my stress levels. And because it's funny because the stuff from like fitness and like personal life, that's almost analogous to the metrics I'm tracking for the company, right? Like make this number go up into the right,
Yep.
or
Yep.
make this number churn go down or whatever. By and the reason for doing it in the company is like that is the only way to measure growth and progress over time. And I never really did that for personal stuff, and now I'm almost starting to do the same thing because I've gotten used to doing it for the company, and it seems to be working. Um, yeah, I think it's a balance between too much rigidity and like having enough flexibility.
I think the way to look at it, and you might be doing this already, but there's a great book called Thinking in Systems, right? You look at your body as a system. You have stocks,
Yeah,
you have inflows, and you have outflows. And most people don't look at like I look at my body as a business, right? I'm not saying I'm like LeBron
yeah.
James or something like that, but it's like you put enough into it where you know you can bring your max to work, and then bring your max to your coworkers, your friends, and your family, and then you go to sleep, you wake up, you do it again, and then eventually you die, and that's it.
Wow, we're all just systems, aren't we? Eric, this is great. There's like so many more things I want to talk to you about. You mentioned AI SEO being bullshit. We could have, had a full episode on that. We could have talked about OpenAI, I think, is going to have their own ad network and like the repercussions of that. But maybe for another conversation. For today, this is great. Thank you so much for being on, Eric, and had a great time talking to you.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Thanks, Eric.